What real psychology tricks do you know to mess with somebody? I use this trick all the time when someone is yelling at me over the phone. Stay completely silent. Don't ignore them, and speak when spoken to, but when they are talking, nothing. No aha, no I see, nothing. Deprive them of all subconscious feedback. You really have to work at it, because humans naturally try to feed off one another verbally in conversation. The other person will quickly sense that something is wrong in the conversation, and it usually throws them off track enough that they stop ranting or yelling and tell you what they actually want. Best way to shut someone up without being rude. Semiotics professor taught it to me. It works just as well in person, but face to face, you have to also avoid nodding, moving your hands, and you have to look them directly in the eyes. I took my kids and 2 of their friends to the skateboard park when they were about 8 and 10 years old. Some kid, who was about 12, was bullying them constantly. He was with 2 others. As an adult, I couldn't do a whole lot to the bully, and I didn't want to see my group have to leave on account of this kid being a jerk. So I told my oldest to just stare at the bully the next time he was approached by him, then say your one eye is higher than the other one, and then skateboard away. Then, one by one, the other 3 kids in my group all skated past him, stared, then turned to my kid and said, "Yeah, you're right." The bully went over to his 2 buddies and he must have asked them if it was true that his eyes were uneven. They all stared at him for a minute. He started crying and left the park. I kinda felt a little bad for him, but not as bad as I felt when he was being an asshole to my kids and their friends. Stare in their forehead just between and slightly above the eye line while talking to someone. It throws them off their game, and they have a harder time lying to you or trying to influence you. There is a term for the style, but I'm too lazy to look it up. I have a nervous habit of acting like everything is normal when it's not. I don't do it to fuck with people intentionally, but it does have that effect. I had a boss who was yelling at me. He was that way. I hadn't really done anything wrong, and I kept talking slow sips of my coffee throughout, and that really triggered him. I crack up when I think back on him getting all fired up, turning red, then purple, then screaming that I needed to stop drinking coffee. One of my bosses feels a need to contradict anything I say, no matter how benign. She gets in moods. Should probably see a therapist. When she does this, I just start agreeing with whatever she says, but I phrase it a little differently and make my tone slightly argumentative, but I'm basically a parrot. Sure enough, she'll contradict what I say. So I do it again, agreeing with her new statement. We can go on like this for a long time. She argues with herself. It doesn't help anything, but I find it amusing. It's the conversational equivalent of my brother grabbing my hand and smacking me in the face with it whilst saying, "Why are you hitting yourself? Stop hitting yourself." Not really a psychological trick, but when I was teaching in the inner city, I had a 7th grader yell at me in front of the whole class to go freak myself when I said they needed to stop talking and pay attention. I didn't yell at them or scold them, just said we don't speak like that to each other. Then made it an absolute priority to greet them at the door and ask how their day was going. A couple weeks of this, and I asked if they wanted to help run my PowerPoint presentations, transition slides when I needed, etc. Before you knew it, they had the positive influence they needed, and I had a wonderful ally in helping my class run smoothly. Sometimes when a person acts out against you, it's because they are hurt. Show them you care, and you may change their entire outlook. Too late, but my successful brother, who is a world-class scientist, is always traveling, so I take care of his lovely apartment. Once I was there trying his new sound system when a cat showed up. I had all the windows open to ventilate, so not so weird. I feed him, but then I decided to do a little experiment. I turned on the sound system, bep bep bep, and then I fed the cat with a little piece of ham. I did this at least 10 times. Next week, same cat, same method. A couple of days after, 2 cats, and the same thing. I did it for months with different cats. Now every time he want to use his super cool and expensive sound system has a choir of cats asking for food. He even showed this trick in a party full of PhDs and everyone had a theory about it. He is really mad about it. I stole this one from my ex-girlfriend, who was a licensed clinical psychologist and kind of a psycho. She had some good traits too, but she was a genuinely scary person. Everybody has little conversational or postural tells that can let perceptive people know they are feeling uncomfortable or awkward. She would tell me what mine were and then point them out every single time I did them. I was happier not knowing about them tbh. Laughing at a bully who is obviously all bark and no bite. Had a female friend in high school getting bullied by a boy who was significantly smaller than she was. He only ever gave her issues when he was with his friends, so it was clear that the goal was to impress them. She wanted to kick his ass since she knew she could stomp him, but didn't want to get suspended, so I told her that next time he puts on his show, laugh. Laugh harder than you've ever laughed before. Make yourself cry laughing if you can, and watch what happens. By golly, she took my advice and laughed in his face the next time he verbally attacked her. She was with another friend, and the friend joined in on the laughter. He kept going, calling her different names until his face went red, and still kept going, even though he ran out of new insults, causing him to repeat himself. His friends were originally laughing with him, but after only about a minute of this they stopped him. Dude, they're laughing at you. This is getting awkward. Just stop and leave it alone. He never tried bullying her again, and I just pulled that idea out of my ass on a whim. My fiance, his brothers and his dad all do this thing that we all refer to as the thing. They'll just pretend to give you incredibly false information, or pretend they have no clue what you're talking about randomly with the most obvious crap. It'll be stuff like, we'll drive past some palm trees and my fiance will say, hey, you know they got their name because the guy who discovered them thought they looked like hands, or one of them will pretend to have never heard of the movie Back to the Future before or something. They always give it up and start laughing, but oh my god. Thankfully, I've been with him long enough that I can see it coming from a mile away, and I catch him with "you're doing the thing," but for everyone else it's an absolute trip because they're so believable with it. Does someone at work treat you as if you're beneath them? Nothing better than walking by the person never making eye contact, ignoring any hellos from said person. This does not mean stare at the floor or wall, just stare directly ahead as you pass them. Then later, when you pass them in the hallway, you initiate the hello. Later in some setting they're liking to crack a joke at your expense and ignoring them, at which you say, oh, I didn't notice you were there, I was deep in thought. You should have said hello. Completely knocks said person down a peg or two. I work with this woman, who was at one point my boss, even, who just stares at people like she's slightly confused or with a completely blank face and heavy blinks for several seconds before taking in a quick breath and answering. I don't know if she's trying to freak with us or manipulate us, or if she just really likes to think before she answers, but we all agree that we've told Beth way too much. She makes us so uncomfortable during those quiet, awkward pauses that we just blurt things out to fill the space. I once told her I cancelled class to go to Hawaii when my leave form said taking care of a sick relative. I've avoided many fights and violent confrontations by staring through people and appearing perfectly calm. I look in the direction of their eyes, but focus past them. This way my eyes don't track their eyes. A big guy tried to start something with me. I did the dead calm stare. He looked me dead on, got uncomfortable, and then backed down. Even mentioned I had one hell of a poker face. Once he left I let out a huge gasp, since my heart was freaking pounding, and I was scared crapless. If you show zero fear it unnerves your opponent. Even if you're outmatched, outnumbered, etc. No matter how confident they are, your seemingly lack of any reaction throws them off. They start thinking, what do they know that I don't? Doesn't always work, but it's saved me countless times. Kind of late, but my wife and I went over her best friend's house and we were hanging out in her bedroom. While there, I changed the channel on her cable box to the Playboy channel while the TV was off. Didn't say anything about it. Later on after dinner we were going back to her room and I was joking about how she sleeps all day, and she joked that all she does is sleeps and watches porn. Next thing she does is turn the TV on, and we all see it on the Playboy channel and starts freaking out. She's completely freaking out saying she was joking, and she doesn't know why it was on that channel. So 2 years, and after her freaking out every time I brought it up over them, I told her on New Year's Eve, while we were all out for drinks. She couldn't believe I waited that long to tell her. Still cracks me up thinking about it. In my teens I worked a retail job in a tourist area. You basically busted your ass for 3 days a week 7 to 8 months a year, and it was chill af the rest. To pass the boring times we would play pranks on each other a lot. We got coordinated and stole one of the shift manager's pens for 3 months. All of his pens. On a few occasions we teamed up to distract him and stole them from his shirt pocket. Twice we got it from behind his ear without him knowing. We ended up with a desk drawer full of pens. The real trick was pretending it wasn't happening and he was just forgetful. We would always have a pen to lend him and made sure it was red/green cause he always used black/blue. If he didn't give it back immediately we would steal that back too and then ask him for it. He literally went apeshit one day and had a full-on tantrum about losing pens. He didn't come in until the following Monday, so we filled a DVD player box with all the stolen pens, gift wrapped it, and put it on his desk. We just heard mad cackling when he opened it, and when we went in he was almost apoplectic. Top bloke. When you and your mate go to the supermarket in high mode, take them through the condiments aisle. Pretend sudden interest in condiments. Get them engaged. Start by grabbing 2 condiment glass jars. Mustard is my favorite. Walk a bit away from them, but make sure you have immediate access to more condiments jars. Then, with both hands armed with glasses and arms akimbo, establish eye contact and assume a dueling position. Yell hep and leap the first one at them with a predictable underarm throw with a predictable high arc. At this moment, everything else in their life will literally cease to exist and give way to the perceived responsibility of not letting the condiments hit the floor and break. Be aware of this situation yourself. Now you're in full control. Reload, and keep leaping condiments with your signature hep announcement sound of impending doom. Increase or decrease the speed at your whim, and watch the hilarious struggle. I'm a man of simple pleasures. I know a somewhat unattractive feeble guy who is a big nerd with tons of allergies, but he recently told me how he made a foolproof strategy for making friends with the popular kids, but it's actually pretty dark. He finds a popular person he wants to be friends with. He finds out who their friend group is. He picks the weakest among them and befriends them. Once he's on the outskirts he observes the way they interact and finds the second highest to the most popular guy on the totem pole. He pays attention to how he functions in the group. Humor, comic relief, but of jokes, intelligent quick wit, kind, thoughtful, DD, specific video games, movie genres, etc. whatever that guy's thing is. And then once he's got that down he literally copies the dude, does it slightly better, because he knows what he's lacking, and straight up replaces the guy. The other dude sometimes gets forgotten out of the group entirely. When he told my boyfriend and I, we were like WTF dude that's kinda freaked up. And then he explained how he did it to be friends with my boyfriend. After he explained, and we thought about it, it was a double shock. Weird dude. When my toddler has a tantrum I ask him random questions which makes him focus on my questions, rather than the source of his tantrum. Also when he wants something, and starts crying for it, I don't say no bluntly but something like, "Do you want that toy, don't you? I would like to have it too and play Tota, but you see we need this money to buy food, or we won't anything to eat tonight." He then understands and chills out. When having a conversation where you want someone to reveal something to you, stay silent. This will prompt them to give you more information. I don't know exactly why, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere along the lines of the information they just told you didn't satisfy, so they need to offer up more until they let something slip. Unwholesome. My dad will talk to someone he's having a problem with and jab his finger at their chest aggressively to make them feel threatened and, he hopes, physically assault him first so that he can say their assault was unwarranted when they inevitably flick his hand away or push him away from them. It's worked. Wholesome. My brother is severely mentally handicapped and I grew up watching my mother deal with bullies and then having to deal with them for his sake myself. My son is a little odd and has had some issues with bullies, and here is a thing. Sometimes kids are just jackals and you gotta go in yelling and on the offensive. Other times though, if you pretend you don't know that the kid was actively being mean and just explain that your child is different and needs help, and that other kids are so important to make them feel safe and understood, those bullies will listen and understand and change and even sometimes, truly, become their protectors and advocates. When I'm standing directly to the side of someone, I'll put my hand slightly in their peripheral on the table and then pound my own hand. Half the time, they will yell in pain, and every time they'll flinch away, even though it's not their limb. It's the ghost limb effect, that is the same as how people who lose limbs will feel ghost pain in those missing parts. I only do it to my close co-workers and friends that are always pranking each other. Like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.